Introverted thinking, T, the internal architect. Expanded core definition. What is T really? Introverted thinking, T, is a judging function. It makes decisions based on internal reasoning, structure, and clarity. But unlike T, which looks outward for results and system functionality, T turns inward toward conceptual consistency. T is constantly asking, does this make sense logically within itself? Its standard is not, does it work? T, its standard is it clean, elegant, coherent, and internally valid? T seeks truth that is free from external noise, untainted by opinion, politics, emotional pressure, or societal expectations. It values purity of thought, not correctness by majority, but correctness by logic. TI's cognitive signature, internal refinement. Where T builds executable systems, T builds conceptual models, elegant, efficient, and accurate. Where F tracks external feelings to guide harmony, T filters through internal truth mapping, pruning contradictions, and questioning assumptions. T isn't trying to win. It's trying to understand. This function has a deep trust in personal rational process and will often override authority, convention, or even results if they conflict with its logic model. The mechanics of T. Internal calibration. Every thought gets checked against a mental blueprint. Minimalist logic. It wants the simplest answer that still explains everything. Systemic stripping. It doesn't just build, it takes things apart to see how they really work. Rule independence. T creates or modifies its own internal rules. It resists being boxed in by someone else's. Truth, agreement. It may challenge others, not to be difficult, but to seek clarity. Core behaviors of T. Endless why asking, why is it like that? Is that assumption even necessary? Surgical precision in definitions. Words matter, everyone. A T user might rewrite a sentence 20 times. Desire to debug reasoning. In arguments, T often looks past the emotion to find structural errors in logic. Tendency to pause or slow down when unsure. It doesn't blurt, it considers. T versus T, key contrast. Aspect.
Tiistai. T.
Logic orientation. Internal coherence. External outcome. Structure focus. Conceptual refinement. Practical efficiency. Truth standard. Is it self-consistent? Does it work in the real world? Social behavior. Often quiet or surgical. Often directive or managerial. If T is a project manager, T is a code cleaner, endlessly refining the back-end logic to remove redundancies. T compared to Phi. Both are introverted judging functions, but T evaluates logic, while Phi evaluates values. T. That doesn't make sense logically. Phi. That doesn't feel right to my values. Both care deeply about authentic inner truth, but they define that truth by very different compasses. Emotional tone of T. Feels emotionally neutral or still, but not cold, more like focused. May get frustrated by irrationality or contradiction, especially if it's disguised as truth. Can become socially passive when it's still working something out internally. Often feels emotions in a delayed or subdued way, with quiet intensity rather than explosive expression. Subconscious questions T asks all day. Is that definition clean? Do they actually mean what they're saying? What's the structure beneath this behavior? What am I missing? Where's the contradiction hiding? Real-world manifestation when healthy. Engineering and systems design. Building elegant, self-consistent models and tools. Philosophy and analysis. Refining arguments, creating coherent frameworks. Writing and editing. Pruning fluff, clarifying structure, making ideas sharp and refined. Software and code. Building minimalist, scalable logic systems. Psychology and diagnostics, seeing beneath the surface to the internal architecture of behavior or cognition. Metaphor. T is like a sacred blueprint scroll, carefully unrolled, scrutinized, and revised again and again. It doesn't care if the building is popular, only whether its design is clean, honest, and sound. Summary: T is the internal engineer of cognition. It strips away noise, contradiction, and complexity to get to the core of truth. It is not always easy to explain, but when developed, it creates precision, adaptability, and profound intellectual honesty. Energetic vibe of introverted thinking, T, subtitle: How T feels, moves, and expresses itself internally. The feeling tone of T from the inside. To live with strong T is to have a mental tuning fork calibrated to internal coherence. It's not about arguing for argument's sake. It's about clarity, purity, and being able to trust that your own mind makes elegant, logical sense. T feels like walking through a mental labyrinth that sharpens with each step, organizing a messy drawer of thoughts until everything clicks into place. The relief of finding the perfect word, the perfect framework, the cleanest explanation. That sudden click when a puzzle piece fits, and you don't care if anyone else sees it. Unlike Te, which focuses on external execution and outcomes, T is an inward analyst. It turns ideas around in the mind like a gem under light, silently asking, is this true? Is this consistent? Does this hold up even in silence? Energetic qualities of T. Detached but deeply engaged. It may seem aloof, but it's intensely focused, just not on you. Minimalist and precise. T seeks to trim, simplify, and purify thought. Less is more. Delayed expression. It rarely blurts. It processes first, then speaks, and often edits internally. Independent. It prefers to reach conclusions internally rather than rely on others' logic. Reconstructive. It not only analyzes but rebuilds. It deconstructs ideas and reconstructs them better. Quiet confidence. When it lands on a conclusion, it doesn't need external validation. It just knows. Typical expressions of T. Endless refinement. Rewriting or rephrasing the same message 5 times until it feels clean. Precision obsession. Pausing mid-conversation to define a word or fix an unclear framework. Mental debugging. Noticing when a belief or argument contradicts itself and quietly dissecting it. Detached clarity. Offering calmly worded insights while others are emotionally reactive. Conceptual engineering. Taking complex ideas and reducing them to elegant, flexible models. When T is in flow, thought feels crystalline. Everything has its place. You speak or write with confidence, not force, because your ideas feel clean inside. You can follow rabbit holes without getting lost, because your logic anchors you. You find beauty in elegant frameworks, symmetry in systems, clarity in nuance. When T is blocked or distorted, you may feel mentally cloudy or irritated by noise and mess. You might become hypercritical, slicing others' arguments apart without compassion. You may avoid action entirely, stuck in overanalysis or model building. You might become emotionally avoidant, escaping into the intellect to protect your inner world. Inner world quote, imagined by T. I don't care if it's popular. I care if it holds up under scrutiny. Metaphor. T is like a watchmaker in a silent room, delicately tuning gears you'll never see, not for applause, but because the mechanism deserves precision. Or it's a mental stream, carving out clarity by eroding unnecessary assumptions until only truth remains. T isn't cold. It's intimate with ideas, protective of precision, and committed to internal truth above all else. Cognitive roles of introverted thinking, T, by stack position subtitle, How T expresses itself as dominant, auxiliary, tertiary, and inferior. T as first function, the dominant, internal architect. Role: identity-defining framework builder, truth refiner, mental editor. Energetic feel: constantly refining logic, definitions, and concepts. Everything must make sense from the inside out. Behavioral patterns: seeks clean reasoning, asks endless why questions, dissects systems for internal consistency. Typical strengths: conceptual clarity, logical precision, independent reasoning, structural insight. Risk/distortion can become overly detached, emotionally unaware, isolated, or obsessed with perfect internal models over real-world action. Types with dominant T, INP, ISTP, and T-centric stacks like T, NA, T, NI. I don't care if it works, if the logic's off, it's still wrong. T as second function, the auxiliary, precision support. Role, internal logic system used to support perception-based cognition. Energetic feel, an internal clarifier or editor that helps make sense of intuitive or sensory input. Behavioral patterns, clarifies, organizes, and fine-tunes input from a dominant perception function like know or say. Typical strengths, self-correcting logic, quiet exactitude, behind-the-scenes reasoning, principled clarity. Risk/distortion may get stuck in nitpicking logic or retreating into frameworks rather than action. Example pairings. Na, T, playful logic. Say, T, tactical reasoning. Fei, T, relational logic. Let's think this through. What's the cleanest way this actually fits together? T as third function, the tertiary, inner tinker/loop zone. Role, comfort zone system builder, personal thought cleaner, nerdy indulgence zone. Energetic feel, a private mental sandbox, plays with ideas, theories, strategies, or mechanics as a hobby or retreat. Behavioral patterns, often activated through curiosity or emotional discomfort, used to make sense of the world or self. Typical strengths, mental adaptability, light logic refinement, ability to simplify or organize. Risk/distortion may loop with dominant introverted functions, e.g., Phi, T, and spiral into conceptual overprocessing or emotional disconnection. Example pairings: Phi, T, emotional logic blend. Fei, T, social theorizer. Ni, T, mystic philosopher. I'm not arguing, I'm refining. Give me a sec to clean up this thought. T as fourth function, the inferior, hidden clarity/shadow logic. Role, suppressed mental optimizer, buried rational voice, insecure analyst. Energetic feel, feels foreign or inaccessible at first. Logic may feel intimidating, slow to trust, or overly simplistic. Behavioral patterns may dismiss inner questioning, seek external structure, or suddenly feel not smart enough. Typical strengths, when integrated self-trust and reasoning, balanced problem-solving, independence from social logic. Risk/distortion, intellectual defensiveness, over-reliance on consensus, inability to articulate inner structure, fear of seeming illogical. Example pairings: Fei, C, Na, T-types, or Te, Phi, Say, T-stacks. I don't always know how to explain it. I just hope it makes sense when I say it. Summary. T brings crystalline logic and subtle refinement to any stack, but its role shapes how it's accessed. As a dominant, it forms identity through logic. As an auxiliary, it sharpens perception with clean mental frameworks. As a tertiary, it tinker-tools ideas and adds nerdy flavor. As an inferior, it quietly waits until clarity becomes a path to personal power. T teaches us that truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's elegant, quiet, and exact. T Strengths Profile Subtitle: The Powers of Introverted Thinking in Precision, Structure, and Inner Logic. Core Strengths of T. 1. Internal logical clarity. T naturally seeks clean, coherent internal systems. It refines ideas until they hold up from all angles, not just socially or practically, but logically. If it doesn't make sense internally, I can't support it. 2. Elegant system building. T prefers efficiency through elegance. It often designs mental models, theories, or frameworks that simplify complexity without oversimplifying. 3. Objective analysis. T works best with quiet space to detach and analyze. It seeks truth without agenda, not based on group opinion or emotional appeal. 4. Conceptual refinement. A T mind can spend hours editing an idea, trimming contradictions, and ensuring the internal consistency of its thought architecture. 5. Critical thinking and mental precision. T shines in breaking down flawed arguments, cleaning up vague language, and spotting structural weaknesses others miss. 6. Independent thought. Rather than rely on authority or consensus, T develops its own stance. Even if it agrees with others, it must arrive there on its own terms. 7. Self-directed problem solving. T often solves problems by turning inward, examining its own understanding, and reorganizing data until the puzzle fits. 8. Subtle communication. When mature, T articulates complex ideas with minimalist precision. It speaks just enough to be clear, no more, no less. 9. Pattern integrity. T values patterns, but only if they're coherent. It notices when pieces don't fit and works tirelessly to refine the structure. 10. Mental stillness and inner integrity. T can dwell in long periods of thought without action, not out of apathy, but because it honors clarity. It won't act until the idea is clean inside. Summary. Introverted thinking brings inner rigor and clarity to the table, shaping cognition through frameworks, insight, and independent truth testing. T is the inward engineer, the conceptual minimalist, the precise theorist. It doesn't need applause, only integrity. Its strength lies not in volume or speed, but in precision, elegance, and internal truth. T shadow and distortions profile. Subtitle: The shadows of introverted thinking, when clarity becomes coldness. What happens when T distorts? Introverted thinking, T offers elegant clarity, inner logic, and autonomous insight. But in its shadow, T retreats into mental detachment, emotional shutdown, and ruthless logic, severing truth from humanity. Shadow T forgets that understanding is not just an equation, and that people aren't puzzles to be solved. Core distortions of T. 1. Overanalysis paralysis. Shadow T gets caught in loops of refining, doubting, rephrasing, and hesitating. It seeks perfect clarity before moving, and ends up frozen in thought. It's not ready. I'm not ready. It's still not right. 2. Disconnection from emotion. T doesn't prioritize feelings, but shadow T invalidates them altogether. Emotions are irrational noise, not worthy of inclusion in decision-making or dialogue. 3. Hypercritical judgments. Shadow T obsesses over flaws in systems, ideas, or people. It spots inconsistencies and sharpens them into weapons, often without realizing the harm. 4. Intellectual elitism. Because it values clean logic, Shadow T may begin to equate correctness with superiority. Those who speak emotionally or imprecisely are dismissed. 5. Avoidance of vulnerability. T prefers self-containment. Shadow T hides behind intellect to avoid intimacy, fearing that feelings, needs, or flaws will collapse the internal system. 6. Conceptual disconnection from reality. In pursuit of elegant theory, Shadow T can become detached from practical realities or social dynamics. It refines the idea, but never tests it. Shadow pairings and loops. T, Fey loop, uses external emotional cues, Fey, to mask internal detachment, pleasing others without ever revealing what it truly thinks. A logical mind hidden behind polite presentation. T, Naloop, generates endless speculative thought without anchoring anything. Theory feeds theory. Action becomes paralyzed by overcomplexity. T, Say disintegration, suddenly acts out in sharp, impulsive ways, usually after too long denying emotion. Cold calculation gives way to reckless expression. Emotional signs of Shadow T. You feel numb and retreat into logic. You invalidate others' feelings, even unintentionally. You refine projects or thoughts endlessly but rarely share them. You fear sounding wrong, so you say nothing at all. You feel secretly superior and misunderstood. Healing and integration suggestions. Reconnect with Faye. Let yourself engage emotionally, even if it's messy or imperfect. Value connection over correctness in conversation. Practice sharing unfinished thoughts to build trust in relational thinking. Notice how emotions offer data, not threats. Use logic in service of meaning, not as a wall against it. Summary. T brings precision, elegance, and thoughtful depth, but its shadow retreats into isolation. Its strength becomes distortion when the perfect answer matters more than honest presence. T heals when it allows others to see its process, not just its product, and when it welcomes feeling as a form of truth worth integrating. You don't have to be flawless, you just have to be real enough to connect. T Development Practices Subtitle: Cultivating Clarity, Structure, and Inner Coherence with Introverted Thinking. Why T Development Matters. Introverted thinking, T, is the inner engineer of cognition, valuing precision, logic, and elegance in understanding. But when underused, we may feel mentally foggy, reliant on external authority, or unable to form clear inner convictions. When overused, T can spiral into detachment, overthinking, and emotional dissociation. Developing T is not about being right, it's about refining your lens so that your thoughts reflect your truth with clarity, depth, and coherence. If T is underused, and you want to strengthen it, signs you're underusing T. You rely on others' opinions to form your views. You struggle to articulate why you think or believe something. You feel mentally scattered or overwhelmed by complexity. Development practices. Thoughts structuring journals: choose one question or topic and structure your thoughts into clear points. Example: what do I think about authenticity? Outline it logically. Why chains: ask why 5 times in a row about any belief you hold. Trace assumptions. You'll discover your foundation or a lack of one. Logical debugging: when confused, pause and isolate the core problem. Break it down into parts. Ask, what is the actual flaw in this reasoning? Precision language exercises: rewrite vague statements, e.g., it sucks, into precise ones, e.g., I'm frustrated because this lacks consistency. Mental minimalism: refine your ideas like a sculptor. Remove excess. Ask, what is the most elegant version of this concept? Independent idea formation: pick a topic and form an opinion before you Google it. Strengthen your raw reasoning. If T is overused and you need to balance it. Signs of T overuse. You overthink to the point of paralysis. You dismiss emotion or interpersonal nuance as illogical. You struggle to connect because you're always analyzing. Balancing practices. Feedback loops: ask, how might this sound or feel to someone else? Let relational resonance refine your logic. Emotion integration journaling: after forming a belief, reflect, how does this feel to hold? Let the body weigh in. Truth includes emotion. Imperfect expression exercises: share your ideas before they're perfect. Practice being wrong, fuzzy, or unfinished, and still worthy of dialogue. Conversational vulnerability: let others see your mental process, not just your conclusions. I'm still thinking about this, but here's where I'm at. Trusting instinct challenges: make small decisions intuitively, e.g., picking a movie or outfit, without analyzing. Learn to tolerate messiness. Feedback without fixing: practice listening to people emotionally, not as a problem to solve, but as an experience to witness. Advanced integration practices. Belief mapping: chart a belief system, e.g., your ethics, politics, spirituality, into a logical framework. Notice inconsistencies, then repair or reimagine. Mental deconstruction: choose a common idea and dismantle it. Rebuild it more elegantly. Example: what actually is productivity? Inner logic voice: personify your T and give it space to speak. Then let your Fae reply. Notice how truth shifts in dialogue. Debate journaling: argue both sides of an issue. Explore complexity without needing a single stance. Summary. Healthy T is the sword of clarity, silent, clean, and sharp. Shadow T is a wall of glass, cold, elegant, and lonely. T develops not through proving others wrong, but through refining how you understand, express, and apply truth. Let logic become service, not armor, and let your structure hold meaning, not just precision. You don't need to have the final answer, just the most honest process you can trust.